on there. I can't think of some of the others. I'll think of them in a minute that we used to sell. But anyway, I mean, I wouldn't recommend them except for they're the only ones you can get them from. You know, if you're looking for an heirloom type strawberry in North Carolina. Now you can go to Pennsylvania, a lot of other states, but that's probably the only nursery in this state that has a diversity of heirloom strawberries. Culture. Before planting, you need to put those strawberry plants, when they arrive, they're going to be bare rooted in a cooling system. So around 38 to 44 degrees, which is normal refrigerator temperature, works very well. Keep the roots moist. You know, what's going to happen is they're going to look very similar to this right here. And if that plant starts white capping, and by white capping I mean on the root, the little root hairs, you'll have these little tiny caps that look white. If you take, you know, I have to have my glasses to see very good, but you'll see these little white spots all over the roots. When you start getting white capping, it's taking the energy from the crown, putting it in the root, and it's ready to start growing. So you get them in the ground pretty quick. Usually 3 to 6 weeks. Once they arrive, you can leave them in the refrigerator and they're fine in there. Plant them in the soil so the roots are spread out. If you're in a homeowner situation, now if we're in a commercial situation, we poke a hole, we shove that root in there. It's much better to dig a hole and make a little mound like this. Wherever that plant's going to do, put the strawberry plant over the top of it, spread the roots out. You'll have a lot quicker establishment when you're planting that as well. In their training system, the matted row is the easiest for the homeowners to follow. You're going to do a lot better with, that's the system I'm going to teach you this morning. The very vigorous types of plants, like a Chandler. Chandler's more vigorous than a Sweet Charlie. You can put them a little bit closer. You can plant the thing 6 inches apart if you want to, but who's going to be able to afford that? What you're going to do is plant them as the maximum distance to where they'll fill in between. And the 6 inches is a very important number to remember. That's what we renovate back to. We want to keep them that much apart. Yes, sir? pH is right at 6.4 to 6.7. You get much over the 7, you're going to have a little bit of problems with a few of the diseases. You want to keep that slightly acid, and does a lot. It's just like a vegetable garden soil, pretty much, what you're going to have for vegetables. Good question. Thank you. Fertilization, of course, you go by a soil test. 99% of the time, people are going to say, oh, there's some great strawberries down at the nursery or 4-H is selling those. You know, boom, I'm going to buy them. Then you go home, what do? Well, here's your little bit. This is in your book, and everybody's going to want to know, well, how do I fertilize in there? I normally don't even leave this in when I give lectures in the public because I'm going to try to force them to do a soil test in there. The key is nitrogen. The most soluble nitrogen for you as a small fruit is using something like a calcium nitrate. You know, there's a lot of organic mixes out there now that release fertilizer slower than some of these. Calcium nitrate is readily available. So if you're trying to push, that's a good one to push with. But you know, like your tones, your holly tone types, your berry tone, they have all these ones. They're organically put together and they release slower over a long period of time in there. Okay, this is how you plant. This one right here is way too deep. This section is the crown. So you want the part of the crown underneath the ground and part above, because this part is where the leaves come out. You start fertilizing normally with strawberry plants when you have the first the first or second true leaves. So if you haven't done a soil test, that's about the time period when you start, which would probably be around March to April when you're planting in there. This one is too shallow. What you want to worry about, what you're worried about, is when you plant, you don't want to J-root your plants. What J-rooting means is, where this is correct right here, you can plant it perfectly up here, and then this root is bent and comes up in what's called a J. If that happens, it takes at least 2 to 3 extra weeks for that plant to adjust. It won't necessarily kill it, but it will just sit there and put a few leaves out and sit there. It won't do anything because it's got to put new roots out and go back down. You want the roots to go straight down when you're planting. And if you're not willing to dig a big enough hole, cut some of the roots off because they're going to come with the original roots on there. Pretty good amount of root system on there. It's okay to cut them. Mulching to control weeds and keep the fruit clean. Pine needles work very good. You know, they're clean. We'll put them in February over top of the plants. When the plants are in the more dormant state, then the plants will go up through that mulch. So you just cover the whole bed, or the rows if you're doing rows, then it will come up. Straw works good. If you know the straw has seeds in it, what you want to do is you want to wet the straw a couple of weeks ahead of time. Let that germinate, whatever's in the straw. Do not use hay, because hay has a lot of seeds in it. And, you know, if you know that the hay was second cutting hay when you don't have the seed heads, that's okay. But normally when you're going to get free hay or cheap hay, the farmer's trying to get rid of it. And it's got seeds in there, it's going to cause you a problem. So you want to germinate the seeds that are in that. You just break open the bale, soak it real good. 3 to 5 days later, your weed seeds and your seeds that are in there are going to germinate. You let them germinate, and then you spread it out over your strawberries. Okay? In there. Irrigation, they're shallow rooted. The main times you don't want to have drought on your strawberries are at, that's not first set, that's supposed to be fruit set, sorry, in there. When it starts setting fruit. So at 50% bloom, you know you're going to have to start at that point making sure you have an inch and a half water a week. I don't care how you put it down there, if you even get a watering can, if you're small, but you need to get some water down there. Drip is the easiest on there. And then after renovation, which here is July, end of July, 1st of August. You're going to renovate. You're going to cut all those off. I'm going to teach you how to renovate in a minute. And then that's when we're going to actually add water in there, because you want to put more runners out at that time period. Weed control is very important. What happens when the strawberries, you're harvesting vegetables at the same time when the strawberries have quit producing, and you just say, oh, to heck with it. The weeds are your worst enemy on strawberries. They're shallow rooted. It will affect the crown. It will affect the bud set in the fall. So you want to keep them as weed free as possible. And your hoe is a great friend on that. You know, we don't have some of the pesticides we used to have for pre-emergence, like Dactol. Some of you may be able to get Dactol now that that's a good pre-emergent herbicide to put out there. Mulching works probably the best for us here. 30 days after that bloom blooms and stops is when you have a berry. So you start seeing bloom, you can guarantee 30 days later you're going to have strawberries ripe. It takes that long for it to do. Excuse me. In there. When you're harvesting, you're going to leave a little bit of the stem on there. If you pull it off and it pulls out of the stem, if you have to do any kind of washing, water can get into that cap. So if at all possible, to leave a little bit of stem on there is better in the strawberries. They'll last a lot longer in the refrigerator when you put them in and take the field heat out. You harvest, you immediately take them inside and put them in the refrigerator and cool them down. That takes the field heat out. You can keep them for up to a week and a half if you'll do that immediately. Within an hour of harvest, get them in refrigeration. You're going to have a lot longer shelf life that's there. Leaving the stem on is going to increase the shelf life at least 3 to 5 days. Okay?
Do you take them out of the refrigerator after that hour?
You leave them in the refrigerator until you use them. Okay? And
Do you wash them after they're cooled? Or?
Well, if you have followed the mulching and stuff like that, you shouldn't have to do any washing on a strawberry at all. They should be very clean, and you shouldn't be spraying anything during the harvest time period at all, even Captan. There's no need. In the commercial industry, we spray nothing but fungicide during bloom, then we stop. We'll use an organic spray or two if need be, but you can rest assured most of the strawberries that are grown for the tailgate market here that I work with are very concerned about sprays. You don't spray any kind of insecticide except for an organic spray for Drosophila. With strawberries, if you find out, or any fruit, if you find out you've got an insect problem, what you do is you harvest everything that is ripe. Get it off of there, whether it be blueberries, strawberries, or whatever. Then you mitigate the problem. That way there's a time period before you harvest again. So if you harvest everything off, you've got 4 or 5 days. So if you use a chemical that only lasts maybe a few hours, 3 days later you won't have a problem. You won't be eating pesticide. Okay, that's very important to know that. We need to tell the public that as well. We need to warn them, most instructions you get from a nursery are spray every week with, chlorothalonil to control diseases. Well, they don't think that homeowners don't have enough sense. No offense to you homeowners to know that, it's every week. It's like I had this one lady that I explained to her how to fertilize, and she said, I'm killing everything, Well, I said a cup per 100 square feet or whatever it was I give her. She was doing a cup per plant every 5 days. You talk about some killing of salts. I mean, it was just like putting salt on the slugs. She was sucking up the roots and killing them, But, their perspective is not like ours as a horticulture person. We have to be more specific and they don't want to do something wrong. We just need to teach them that. Renovation and renewing. I'm going to give you 5 steps on how to renovate. That should be in your book. I can't remember, but I helped write that book 100 years ago, and I can't remember what's in there, but I think it's in there. One of the first ones that wrote that. But I've got a slide on that, hopefully. This is what a matted row system looks like, just so you can visually see that. This drawing should be in your book. You plant them originally, whatever spacing you choose, anywhere from 2 to 4 feet apart. Then what happens is the runners go and they put a runner out and it stops there and it roots and it stops there and it roots and it fills up and you have a great 18-inch wide row. And that gives you a good 2 feet in between that you can stand and harvest. That's what you're after. The next year, they don't know that you don't want them to put a runner in the middle. And you're going to be so awful, you're not going to kill plants. So you're going to let it put runners everywhere. Oh my God, you'll try to give your extra runners to all your neighbors and everybody's going to have strawberries everywhere. Kill the suckers. Chop them up. It's okay. Because you're going to have a row in between to where you can walk. And you can actually get in there and do something. And that's what we do in renovation. We reestablish this row system. And this is how we do it. Number 1, apply 2,4-D. That is a broadleaf weed killer after you have completely harvested. You don't want anything else to go on. So what you do is you kill it down. If you're an organic person, I try to always have an organic twist in here. And this is anecdotal because we've not proven that vinegar works, but industrial grade vinegar will burn down some of those broadleaf weeds. If you're doing a really good job, you shouldn't have a lot of weeds in your strawberry patch to start with. But you'll get dock. You'll get some of these hard to kill ones that come in, the birds poop in there, and you'll have a few come in. You've got to mitigate that problem.
Now when you put that, you put it all over.
You spray your entire patch. Excuse me. I do apologize. I'm just trying to do my best. So you spray the whole patch with 2,4-D. I personally think that is horrid. But you have to do something. If you're a pesticide type person, what's wrong with a good hoe? Pull that up. Spend a little time. If you're in a homeowner situation, you're not going to have that big a patch unless you're trying to sell at the market. So take some time and get every weed out of there. Dig it out. I just worry about bees and things with sprays. But, that's what's recommended. Next, you wait about 6 or 7 days. You might have missed a weed or two and it'll recharge. Then what you do is you take a lawnmower or a weed eater and you mow the whole patch. You mow it over the whole thing. Take your lawnmower, raise it up, mow. You'll have hills. Put your wheel on one side of the hill and mow the hill. Put on the other side, mow the other side. And yes, you're going to cut some of those crowns. You're trying to kill some of those babies out. Okay? Everything. You mow it all down. Okay? Yes? On top of strawberries.
It's not going to kill the strawberries?
Well, you don't care because you're not, it will kill the top leaves some. But you're just spraying everything. Okay? The crown's not going to die. It's not a systemic. It's not going to go down and kill the crown of the strawberry plant. Okay? Does that make sense? You're trying to kill the broadleaf weeds is what the 2,4-D is about. Okay? Yes?
What should the strawberry patch look like at this time of year?
At this time of year, you'll probably have a few mature leaves. They should have a little red color on them, maybe a little brown from the scorching of the cold weather. You know, probably in about 2 weeks, the strawberry should begin to start swelling. The crown should swell. If it's not already swelling, you'll see some push out of leaves. You should be seeing some bloom about the latter part of of March. So according to your variety, Chandlers will start pushing a few blooms out. Jewels will probably be a little bit later. Probably the first week of April, you'll see them. They'll hold themselves a little.
Leaves in there, and I was thinking that was the winter kill.
Yes, not a problem.
Should I remove them?
If you think there's a disease problem, yes, I probably wouldn't too much worry about it at this point. Did you hear what her questions were? I didn't repeat them like I like to do in there. But you're going to see a lot. It looks like they look like, oh my gosh, I've got spider mites because you got a little bit of color on top of the leaf. No, it's from the burn, in there. Now, if you're at a higher elevation, around 3,000, it's probably froze off most of those leaves. If you're lower elevation, those leaves will hang on as long as. And Jewel is a little bit more winter tolerant than some of the others. Has a real concentrated flavor. Have you ate some of yours yet? They're really good. They're good berry. Yeah, that's the ones I'm talking about getting from the nurseries. Those kind of varieties. So we're going to reduce the row width. You want about 18 inches in the row, and then you'll mulch in the center with paper or cardboard. 3 layers of newspaper will smother those strawberry plants that are in the pathway. You can also take a tiller and just run right down through there and just till up all those plants and kill them. A lot of times we're, wanting to recycle our stuff anyway. Cardboard works good. Kind of looks ugly, so I kind of cover it with mulch, make it look pretty if you're in where people can see your yard. But there's ways to do that. But a lot of us small homeowners, we don't have a big tiller. So the cardboard works. You can go in and smother. That way you've got a path to walk. That's what you want in between in there. And this is a good time. If you know you don't have disease or something like that, you can save the runners or dig some of those up and move them. I've got one grower that actually goes in and digs up all between the rows, and then she always has maybe 3 patches and a new one every year and taking one completely out. She's rotating her strawberries. She's had the same strawberry plants now for about 16 years. I don't normally recommend that, but that is a possibility if you're doing a really good job keeping your disease down, your anthracnose and some of those hard to do. Thin the plants in the row and leave the most healthy ones. And some of those you've not cut the crown on and stuff like that. You're going to leave some of those good healthy ones about 6 to 8 inches apart. And what's going to happen is you start fertilizing at this point and watering. Runners are going to start going everywhere. And then you refurbish and have a nice, beautiful green row by frost in the fall of the year. Okay? So you've completely renovated your patch. You've gotten, actually, when I was growing different varieties of strawberries, when I did the mowing, I took my blower, I have a big old blower, and I blew off all the leaves. I blow everything off and kind of cleaned it up at that point if you want to do that. That's not recommended, but these OCD kind of people like me, I want everything to be real clean and nice lines and stuff like that. So I rake it all out and got it all and then put fresh everything down, make it look real pretty.
What month would you say you'd be doing this?
July. Because you're going to be finishing up, according to what variety. If you got early glow or early bell, you're going to be doing it in June because they're going to be harvested earlier. A jewel like yours, it'll be July. Most of them are going to be May and June is going to be your peak of your June-bearing strawberries. Okay? And, yes. Now, well, you don't want to mulch at this point because you want the runners to come and fill in. You want new plants. You're recharging your patch in July. So you leave it set bare. But now keep the weeds out of it. If you're not going to weed it, mulch it. Okay? And this is when you don't want weeds. You want to take care of your patch. It's just as important those 2 to 3 months after you've harvested than it is before. That's where we tend to not take care of our strawberries and we're over here getting our winter squash in and working on things like that. That's when you want to do that. Okay? I won't spend as much time on it. Any more questions about strawberries? We're going to blackberries now, the brambles. And I'll pretty much talk about blackberries and then I'll tell you the difference